My name is Austin. This is the Rip and Tear Radio segment of the channel. I have a very, very special guest today. He is the Sigil Composer 2019 Espi Award winner. Composer of The Adventures of Square, has over 640 MIDI contributions to the scene, maps, mods, everything. Jimmy, why don't you introduce yourself? Thank you for coming on today.
My pleasure. Thank you very much, Austin. So my name is Jimmy, aka James Paddock. I've been in the community since about 2006, and yeah, that's me. You introduced me better than I could.
2006. That's quite a while. You've been in the community for quite a bit of time. How did all that start? We got to go back to the very beginning. How did you find out and get started about music, and where did Doom kind of come in with that? About
the mid 2000s, around about that time, is when I kind of rediscovered Doom, I guess, because I'm one of those people who obsesses over like singular things for extensive periods of time. This translates to like games and music and all that kind of stuff. Yeah,
that's me.
Yeah. So for a long time it was, I think it was Duke Nukem 3D was one of those old games that I really obsessed over for quite a long time. Made maps for it and everything. Tried making my own art and even my own like silly little mods and total conversions for it even.
Awesome.
They sucked, but because I was I don't know, maybe 10 at the time. I don't
10?
know.
Making your maps at 10. That's awesome.
Yeah. Some crazy early age like that. Then I kind of got into a little bit of like some other games. I think like StarCraft was another big one that I got into, making maps and campaigns as well for that. Getting into very rudimentary map scripting through that game. And then as soon as I rediscovered Doom, I discovered I think it was the multiplayer scene to begin with. It was the Skulltag side of things.
Okay.
So Skulltag multiplayer. I used to involve myself in a lot of community projects on the Skulltag forums. I think probably one of my first big community projects was Sabat Martyr Deathmatch. I think that was my flagship project, as it were. It was obviously Mechadon's. That was his baby, that project. But I had, I think, 4 maps in that in the end, and that was my way of kind of starting my flow of contributions to the Doom community, like bit by bit. And then sooner or later, it became, I really enjoy mapping for this. I really enjoy like writing music as well, because I've been like splashing about in Cakewalk Express, which is a really, really old version of the Cakewalk Composer software. It's basically a sequence of like DOS and Windows 3.1.
Windows 3.1.
It came on my dad's old Pentium PC, probably the first one that he bought, and it was probably one of the first programs that was ever like loaded onto that PC. But by chance, I just sort of happened to be fiddling around with that, and I got into this kind of groove with it, as it were, I suppose. After enough fiddling around, I kind of got into this flow where I'm like, I just like, even though what I know what I'm creating isn't necessarily that good, I'm really getting into the creative spirit here. I'm really enjoying putting notes on the page and hearing them back. Those are my melodies. Ooh, nice. And I've always been a creative person, like basically all walks of life. So a little bit of really rudimentary like game design and art as a very young kid and all that kind of stuff. And it just sort of gradually grew from there. So once I had the tools and I had the actual drive and the know-how and the software that I wanted to use, I basically just became obsessed with it all. So my start, I guess, was basically in the Doom community, working on the multiplayer side of things a bit more than the single player side of things, I guess.
I think there's value. Like when I've done something similar as a kid, when we would go on trips, I would have my pen and paper on the road. I would draw the little maps. Heretic as well. I put an O for an Ophidian. I would put maybe a C for crossbow. And then you listen back to those early things, and today you could do something with more experience, but those are where you start. You can't forget where you come from with it for sure. But when you do start in a place like that, you have to have an influence of sorts. On guitar, my earliest, Metallica and Guns N' Roses thing. Who are your influences? Who do you look to at your start?
Well, I guess when I started writing music specifically for Doom, it was the composers Mark Clem and David Shaw. They're like the old guard as far as the Doom community is concerned. They've been around since like 95, 96.
Oh, yeah.
and they have some incredible compositions to their name. Some absolutely astonishing soundtracks from the early megawads of 96, 97. So stuff like Requiem, Memento Mori, the Gothic series, all that kind of stuff really, really heavily influenced me when I was starting out. Because this was all original music that was being written for Doom mods, right, which I always thought was really, really cool. So I took, I guess, my initial inspirations from those guys, because they were clearly loving what they were doing, and they were, ahead of the game. They were probably the most sought-after composers at the time. As time went on, though, I guess I started to be more influenced by metal bands of like the era. So yeah, a little bit of a little bit of like mid 2000s progressive metal and alternative metal more than anything else.
You mean
stuff like,
yep, in the vein of like Dream Theater or what?
Dream Theater, Symphony X, that kind of thing. Those are the two that I keep coming back to as being like my main influences, I suppose. So you'll hear a lot of my Dream Theater influence in like the Back to Saturn X soundtrack, for example. I think my Symphony X inspiration's always been there, though, so there's a little bit of that in like the Eternity soundtrack, which is obviously one of my most recent ventures. And lately I've been really getting into the work of Andrew Hulshult and Mick Gordon as well. Like they're just gods at what they do. Those guys are clearly very, very talented. I don't have the means to write music as good as them, but the theory side of it, I'm still taking on board. So
there's a lot to theory. I mean, there's a lot to making a song, and I hope to touch on this more, in some other videos and things, because when you're composing for a game, although I'm not a game composer, you have to consider different things and different sounds of the game. But what does it take to make a song sound Doom? What does that take?
Yeah, there's a bit of a knack to it. Honestly, like it will vary from person to person. Some people will think that, say, the Back to Saturn X soundtrack doesn't sound like the Bobby Prince soundtrack to the original Doom by any stretch of the imagination. I mean, even I will confess, it's a different breed, isn't it? It's a different thing entirely. But at the same time, I think I do uphold some kind of, general kind of standards, I suppose, for myself. So there's got to be it's got to be in a minor key, for example. I don't think there's any major key songs in the original Doom, perhaps apart from the first half of Sweet Little Dead Bunny. Yeah.
The first time I heard that.
Gets under your skin, doesn't it? So that's used for effect, for a very specific purpose. But yeah, for the most part, if you want like a really good crunchy doomy sound to your midis or anything really, a minor key is the way to go. Usually you want like a pentatonic progression or like a melody kind of style. Bobby Prince was obviously a fan of the 12-bar blues stuff, so the harmonic progression of the song can kind of like follow that a bit loosely. It doesn't have to necessarily stringently stay within that realm. But you've also got to have like a catchy lead melody, I feel. Specifically, it helps to have like a really good driving guitar melody, one that really pumps you up for the action.
I agree.
It's got to kind of fit the map as well.
Yeah.
So a map like let me think now.
Well, take Underhalls or The Focus from Doom 2. Those are not your typical driving metal. I mean, Bobby didn't want to make the whole soundtrack for Doom metal.
For sure, yeah.
What do you make of those?
Those definitely suit the maps, I feel. They are more ambient and kind of somber, almost more paced. So they create an atmosphere to very good effect, I feel, those two tracks. Something like Facing the Spider, for example, ECM8 will throw you right into the action. So it's got that big chord at the beginning for like the start room, and then the rest of the map that takes place on the battlefield is just this really nice rapid riff. So it really works quite nicely.
The pacing of the level and also factors in, it's not just about writing, I have a metal riff, let's put it in the map. You have other things you consider.
Oh yeah, I'm extremely visuals oriented as a person, as a creator. So a lot of the time when I write music, I actually like see things in my head, not necessarily on like a synesthetic level. I'm not a synesthete, so I don't see like color when I hear sound, for example. But frequently when I write music, it comes with imagery that I have kind of like bubbling away in my head. So sometimes, for example, I'll I'll take some inspiration from the real world. Like if I look out the window and it's like 6 a.m. and there's a big glorious sunrise and there's fog across like the horizon and all that kind of stuff. That's that's an actual instance. I took that image and then I thought of the phrase "mist at dawn," and then that became a piece of music for the Back to Sat Next soundtrack. That ended up being about 6 minutes long. So yeah, I take a lot of inspiration from like the real world as well, and there's often like stuff that comes to mind like a little bit more on the abstract side. So perhaps I'll imagine like a Doom map that I haven't made yet, one that has like a kind of unique texture combo, that kind of thing, and I'll go from there in a sense. Yeah, that's basically what goes through my mind when I write music. I've got to have like an energy behind it, a kind of like structure-wise, I've got to have a high point as well, like a refrain that we come back to every so often. That's catchy and kind of kind of acts as a center point for the song.
It's almost the hook of the song in a way,
the chorus basically. Yeah.
There you go. When you make all this, it's been a while, like you said, and we talked about the Espi Award you won in 2019. So for those maybe a little unfamiliar, what is that? What does that mean to you?
Well, the Espi Award is so named after Asa Repo, aka Espi, who is a sadly deceased member of the Doom community. I think we lost him in about 2007. But he was a very inspirational figure. He was very creative. He was very friendly. Had the award named after him for his contributions to the community, and the award is then bestowed to people, or to select people in the community, to one person every year at the CAC Awards for somebody who has basically been a pillar of the community for along the same lines as him. So for me to get that award, very, very humbling.
Keeping in mind it's a lifetime achievement based award.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's not just thrown out. That's a pretty big deal. So congratulations on that. That is very awesome. And
thank you very much.
Very welcome.
It is very awesome indeed. Yeah.
To get there, we've talked about the music, but you have to make things and make that content to be able to get there. So you're not just a musician. You do maps. You do mods. What are some of the things that stick out to you? Your most notable, not just music, anything you've made, games.
All right.
We'll talk about that too.
Yeah, okay. So you say games. I do have a game. It's called The Adventures of Square. It's based on the Doom engine, and it's currently a work in progress. We've got 3 episodes planned. The first 2 are available for free download on the website. And yeah, it's been an absolute blast working on that. I've got a very good team working on that one, a very talented crew. Just awesome people in general.
That's something so, definitely do want to talk about. Square, like you said, is it's your own baby, your own entity. But something that really, really stood out lately was that you were involved with Sigil and John Romero. So how did that come about to be involved with something that awesome and a piece of classic Doom history?
Yeah, when you put it like that, it's just surreal, honestly. Yeah. So he sort of messaged me out of the blue. It wasn't something that I really kind of reached out to him about. Yeah, he just messaged me on Facebook.
Okay, cool.
It might be a bit of an anticlimax to the story, but that is how it works. But
like it.
Just so I've got like a Facebook page for my composition stuff that I don't update nearly enough. But even so, he saw it. He reached out to me. He said, "Hi Jimmy, your midis are excellent." And that alone just floored me.
Okay.
But then he followed it up with the old, I need some midis for Sigil. Are you able to help me out with that? And I was like, sure.
Yes, sir. I will.
Yes, indeed. Yes, why not, sir?
Awesome.
So he was looking for not original tracks, but he'd seen my MIDI catalog online and he'd selected a few that he was keen on using. So his initial selection wasn't what wound up in the final product. I helped him out to just select a few tracks that I thought would be fitting for Sigil. I did say to him, are you okay with me composing something new for the maps? Because I can do that very, very speedily if we're on a deadline at all. And he said, well, the deadline's a bit tight. You can write something for the title and the intermission theme if you like. So I wrote those 2 midis in about, I don't know, 2 or 3 hours. I really I just as soon as the job came through, I was like, right, let's get to work,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Well, even like we talked about earlier, pacing and selection. When you start, Hate Machine, when you start off the episode, you need that driving, powerful song. It is essentially what, At Doom's Gate does. So you mentioned you wrote the title intermission, but you had to work with and choose what songs would go where, right?
Basically, yeah.
So you've done that. And then on top of that, we talked about Square. What's it like taking the GZDoom engine and making your own game? Not only that, composing most of this track and having your team. Like, how's it different doing your own work, managing a team?
Well, managing a team, I've had to do it a few times over the years, so I'm no stranger to the whole team leadership kind of thing. With Square, it's a very, very big undertaking. We've got a lot of stuff laid out, particularly for episode 3. We've got an awful lot of content planned. It's almost daunting in a way. Working with the team itself is really, really cool. We bounce ideas off each other very easily. We all kind of are on, the same even keel in terms of what we want the final product to be, what we know is good gameplay and what's bad gameplay, what we want to go for, what we want to strive for, what we want to avoid, that kind of thing. So yeah, and we've got a lot of really, really talented creative people on board the team as well. People like Matt, who's just insanely well organized and very, very streamlined in his work ethic, and is a very talented voice actor as well, I have to say. People like Zaza, who are just immensely talented at mapping and music and just basically anything. You want somebody like that who can do a really good job no matter what sort of job they're given, basically. Just a whole heap of really incredibly talented people, and I'm really, really thankful for each and every one of them. It's been really fantastic to work on that project, and it has been a bit of slow going at times, but it's just such a mammoth undertaking. I really hope we can have something to show for the next episode within a reasonable time span.
It sounds like you work together really well too. I think that helps, being able to see each other and figure out what each person's going to think next, and that all working together like that.
Yeah.
But it's not just that. You've gotten these long-term projects going on, Sigil and Square. But something when I was doing some research stuck out to me called 30 in 30.
Oh, okay.
Can you talk a little bit about that? Because from my understanding of it, and you could tell better, it's not necessarily speedrunning music, but that's what hit my mind. What is 30 in 30?
That is more or less what it is. I call it speed middying.
Speed middying. What is that? That's really cool.
Yeah, so it basically boils down to I'll set myself a very strict time limit. Well, not so much strict, but kind of confining. So I find 30 minutes to be a really, really nice window of a bit of pressure that eggs me on to get the track, the basic ideas down, and to have them flow nicely. And it doesn't really matter if the mix is slightly off or whatever. That was a thing that I found a little bit kind of intoxicating to do, to be honest, because I was doing a lot of speed middying, both on my own and in collaboration with a couple of other people, like Alfonso and Jazz Mickle, they spring to mind. I think Stewboy as well, Stuart Rinn, helped me out on a couple of occasions or joined in on the fun. So this was a very sort of this was a fun thing to do solo, but also a bit of a communal thing as well. So we basically get together in a Skype call, I think it was, and exchange some ideas and throw things around, and then we'd set aside a timer of 30 minutes in which to write a piece of MIDI music. And we'd throw that back and forth maybe 3, 4, 5 times. So, and I think I streamed some of them as well. I don't know if those are still up online though, but it was heaps of fun to do, because the time limit can be quite frightening at times.
I imagine.
But I thrive under pressure. Sometimes you have to give me deadlines in order for me to do anything these days.
And there's 4 editions, right? 4 editions of it, or quite a few?
Yeah, so 4 editions, each 30 tracks long. That's why they're called 30 in 30. 30 tracks in 30 minutes each.
Oh, wow.
With a bit of extra time for polish. Like I said, it's not exactly a strict time limit, but I find I tend to have to go back to things, revisit them to just very slightly tweak things afterwards. So those are for the first 3 editions. Those were 30 midis each written within 30 minutes. It was a slightly different formula for the 4th one, because I did 30 tracks over the course of 30 days.
That's
so cool. I dedicated all of January 2016, I believe it was, to writing 1 piece of music a day, essentially. I just opened my MIDI editor without fail at a certain point of the day and just started scribbling down ideas and just seeing what stuck to the walls, as it were. So it was really cool.
Awesome.
Burnt me out a little bit though. I wouldn't recommend it to just about anybody. You've got to have obviously like the free time and the knowledge of theory and a bunch of other variables in your favor to pull something like that off.
It sounds fun, a little daunting, but fun.
Oh yeah. I love a good challenge, so it was just a logical thing for me to approach, I suppose.
And kind of speaking in terms of a challenge, I'm not sure if I'll call it a challenge, but I'd like to have each interview have a fun little question. And I would like to know, if an archvile was a musical scale or chord, what would he be and what would he sound like? An archvile.
That's a unique question. I don't know, for some reason my mind is going to F minor something, because fire begins with F.
Okay,
that's about
there it
it.
is.
F diminished, an F diminished chord with a seventh and an added fourth, I think.
So to kind of put a general perspective, it's a nasty sounding chord that clashes. It's very dissonant. It's not
quite a spicy
pleasing.
Chord, but kind of with its own sort of like flavor, I suppose.
Which there actually was with the archvile. Bobby Prince, I believe it was a child saying "why" on the sound file when the archvile dies, because
I have heard that.
Because the archvile, he sees himself as good, resurrecting his demons, and he's saying "why." That's why is this happening to me? And that's from Bobby from an interview he did, which is really cool. But
okay, yeah.
What do you have for the future? What's going on in the coming months and the rest of 2020, the third and fourth quarter?
Well, 2020 has been a bit of a monster, hasn't it? I mean, anything could happen at this point.
You could say that.
Yeah, so, I mean, I do intend very much to stick to my guns and stick with the Doom scene as long as I possibly can, because, I mean, I'm just in love with it, basically. I love this community. I love working for it. I love all of the creative stuff that gets put out, because I find a lot of other people's creativity kind of fuels my own in a way.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I just love seeing what gets put out and the ideas that get brought forth. And honestly, like, playing Doom is probably one of the things that gets my creative gears turning the most. So I don't want to lose out on that anytime soon.
No way.
It's probably like 99% of my base output is just comes from having a part in the community. So yeah, just in terms of what I plan for myself for the future, I don't know. I think I'm thinking of probably pursuing some sort of teaching degree, because I would love to teach music to students or young children or whatever it happens to be. And someday later on, much later on down the line, I'd love to own my own studio. Basically be cool. My own personal Mick Gordon, I suppose.
Oh yeah, awesome.
Or Andrew Holsholt, one of those kind of figureheads. So yeah, I guess until then I'm going to just sort of keep challenging and improving myself and just seeing what comes of it.
So when you're making all this, where can people find it? How can they reach you? How can they support you? Where do they go?
So if they would like to just see what I'm up to, just in general, you can go to my Twitter page @JamesPaddock, or just add me on Discord, or they can check out my YouTube channel, which is where I upload all of my music, like all of my MIDI music in a sort of digestible format. That's the James Paddock Music YouTube channel. Or they can go to my Patreon page. That's also called James Paddock Music. And if they become a Patreon patron, then they immediately gain access to my Discord server. They gain a few rights to credits in my YouTube videos and all that kind of stuff. And if they subscribe at a high enough tier, they can also I think they can ask for at slightly discounted commission rates and all that kind of stuff. But if you want to check out basically what I call the hub of everything I do, it's going to be my website, which is jamespaddockmusic.com, and that's where you can see my listed Doom projects and see my commissions page and my fees and all that. So that's basically the hub of where I operate.
Awesome. Over 640 midis, the maps, and everything else. It's really good to be able to talk to you today, get some insight in that. Do you have anything else that you want to say before we call it a day?
I would just say, keep on dooming, everybody. The Doom community is the most awesome community on the internet. Yeah, I think that's how I think. Yep.
I can't put Eternal down. I just keep playing it. Can't help it.
Oh yeah.
Thank you, Jimmy. Thank you very much. I appreciate it. We'll sign off now, and if anyone wants to watch, be sure jamespaddockmusic.com. Listen to everything there. My name is Alston. This is Jimmy. Thank you.
Thank you very much.